Here we go with another episode of Gonzaga Nation SI with Adam Morrison and myself, Dan Dickau, on the Gonzaga Nation Media Network. Season is in full swing. Gonzaga ranked sixth in one poll, five in another after being number two the first couple weeks. But I think it's justified based on the fact that it was a struggle in Texas. Texas is a very good ball club. Gonzaga didn't play well, and then they responded against Kentucky in a neutral site game. I can't wait to get Adam's thoughts on if that was a true neutral site game. But Mo, you were at both games calling it courtside with radio and Tom Hudson. That Texas game, they looked out of sorts a little bit, but that atmosphere, I mean, wow.
Yeah, fantastic atmosphere, great team. Chris Beard's a really good coach coming over from Texas Tech in his second season. Had mostly transfers last year, similar this year, but they've had three of those guys stayed. So then they had a year under their belts. The continuity looked a lot better. And then that facility was beautiful. I mean, it was $375 million facility. I think it held, they said 12 and then 14 for concerts. So they roped off the upper, the top deck and put like graphics and stuff, really state of the art. It was actually the same group that did Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. So Texas didn't have to pay for their own stadium. It's completely funded by somebody else, which is mind-boggling to me. Just how much money down is in that area. But their first big, real tough opponent in that arena. Obviously, they played a couple games before, but it was kind of the grand opening for that arena. And Texas just came out from the jump and outplayed us. 20 turnovers for our guys. I think 4 of them were dribbling off her foot. I think 3 to 4 were, you understand this term, the key pass in the offense, the entry, and then the reversal. That's kind of an NBA term, take away the key pass, and they stole that reversal to get in our offense like 3 or 4 times. It was a bad night, and it was kind of well-deserved that we got beat the way we did.
I hate to use the term good loss, but when you look at the Gonzaga schedule in its entirety, if fans think they were going to have cakewalks and get all the way through to WCC play, they're not thinking clearly. They're not thinking straight, because they've loaded up an unbelievable non-conference. The fact that you go on a road and lose in a game like that doesn't hurt you as much as maybe a neutral site event, which they're going to be at in the PK 85. But, that atmosphere to me was something that this team needs to be in. They need to learn. When you look at it, how was that student section? Because I had a chance to talk to Chris Beard last week. He said he was impressed with Gonzaga's atmosphere a season ago. The building itself was done, but they could change and manipulate a few things in regards to the student section after seeing Gonzaga. How was that student section compared to the Kennel Club?
It was really good. I mean, it wasn't as succinct as the Kennel Club. There's more tradition there, I guess. I'm talking about like cheers and whatnot, but they were very, very much more vulgar and profane than the Kennel Club, and you could spin that any way you want. So yeah, I was impressed with just the overall excitement for that game. Obviously, the building was sold out, but the fans, you could tell, were knowledgeable. You know what I'm saying? They cheered at the right time. They cheered for just not scoring plays. Because it apparently before then their building was too big and they didn't draw very good, so it was kind of dead when you went to play at Texas. So they're trying to change that atmosphere and culture, and I think going to a smaller venue was brilliant. And then their students are getting excited, enjoying themselves at games, and it was a great atmosphere. I like road games. I'm glad we did a non-conference. That was our first one since Arizona in 2019, so it was kind of interesting to play a high level game like that. And frankly, our guys didn't come out with a lot of energy, and the scoreline reflected that.
Yeah, I like the kind of movement towards a lot of schools building a correct size, I guess you could use that term, gym. Gonzaga did that years ago when they built McCarthy and went with 6,000. I think Baylor's doing something similar where they're going to build a slightly smaller state-of-the-art arena. You got to build it where it's still a tough ticket. Everybody wants to go, and if you're there, you're excited to be there. Texas being in the Big 12 is unique, though, because there's been a lot of comments about Gonzaga switching leagues over the last years. Mountain West was, I guess you could say they flirted with that, but you and I both know that wasn't going to happen. I think the Big East makes sense dependent on what other schools may join. Pac-12 has been talked about. Big 12 has been talked about. What are your overall thoughts and impressions on possible conference realignment in regards to Gonzaga?
Well, I think that it's a multi-layered answer. Obviously, with all these schools joining bigger conferences or whatever, there's the pyramid's getting smaller. Our brand is obviously what it is for college basketball, but we don't have football. So that's a real issue if you're joining these bigger conferences, because everybody knows the real true money makers that makes a lot of programs go, or athletic departments, is football. Basketball adds to that a little bit, but your brand has to be really strong. Duke, Kentucky, Gonzaga, UCLA, you know what I mean? You have to be, super, super elite to make money for your university. So I think the thought process is we don't want to be left out in the cold, because there is conference realignment no matter what anybody says. But also it has to make sense for our brand. So I'll be curious to see what happens in the next 1 to 2 years, because I think a move is coming. I don't know that for sure. This is just my opinion. The West Coast Conference had 3 teams in the NCAA tournament last year. Okay, so like it's not like it's just a cakewalk. And but I think with the brand that we have, you have to be proactive, or at least listen to talks on conference realignment, because it's happening all over the country. And like I said, our brand is big enough to add value to a bigger conference, or any conference, that you have to be able to be proactive and at least think about moving. And it's not a slight on WCC or anything like that. It's just the reality of, how, the marketing and the sports dollars work with everybody going to the top of the pyramid now. So it'll be interesting 1 to 2 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this next couple of years is going to be fascinating, because there's going to be a lot of movement and people are going to scratch their heads. Mike Roth was a tremendous AD. I think Chris Stanford's and Coach Few are going to stay on top of it as far as what makes sense, what is best for the school. I'm not going to put the conference out there with what name it is, but I know a strong conference pulled their basketball coaches in regards to, with Gonzaga not having football, what would you do? Would you want them in the league? And the majority of the coaches said, without a doubt, it would influence and impact our league in a positive way. So I love the WCC. I think it's been traditionally a great league, but I think there are changes coming because of the things that you mentioned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like I said, you don't want to be left out in the cold. If there's real dollars to be made, not just for your basketball program, for your whole athletic department, you have to go, chase that and stabilize it. I mean, I think what was the number with UCLA when they moved to the Big Ten? They were $90 million in debt, right? Okay, so there is realignment happening, and you have to do the things to, preserve those other sports. I'm just curious what it would look like, not just for men's basketball, but this is a whole nother show, is what it looked like for women's basketball, who had a great start to this season. It's a really good program. What it would look like for, track, golf, all the other sports, volleyball, for Gonzaga moving to a bigger conference. But we'll let the other people handle that type of question.
Yeah, that's above our pay grade, that's for sure. We are just connected insiders of the program, having conversations and hearing things. But the UCLA one, that would be that to me is just wrong, because as Bill Walton says, it's the Conference of Champions, and then now you have UCLA leaving. I don't know about that, but great atmospheres was Texas. I didn't go to the Kentucky game on Sunday. I just got back from a broadcast, so I didn't make the game, but it looked like it was amazing. Was it as good in person as it looked on TV?
Yeah, I gave it an A minus. It wasn't A plus, and that's not a slight. A plus would be absolutely bananas at all times. But it was a really good crowd. There's a lot of exciting fans that don't get to go to home games because of the ticket availability. So they were excited to be in the Spokane Arena. I was just happy on the way we started. We played with a lot more energy and want to. We weren't getting pushed off our line. I think in that Texas game, if you charted, I guarantee, Coach, if you charted, our catches were at 25 feet plus. I mean, it was absolutely horrendous as far as just floor game, simplicity stuff. But coming out in the Kentucky game, we started off way better, and the atmosphere was great. It was cool to have that game. It was cool to play well there because we haven't played there since 2014.
Yeah.
And Coach Few doesn't like that venue, so it was good for a lot of people, not just our program. It was good for the support staff who had to handle that game selling out in 11 minutes, and people complaining about it, and there should be in the kennel, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
having it done right and winning, so then Coach Few will go back to the arena because it's good for the community as well. um you
Yeah.
know there's a lot of fans that deserve to go to a game, and it's also good for the local economy. I mean, all that stuff sounds funny, but it's true.
Yeah.
So winning really helped, and everybody afterwards was just like, yes, all right, we can have one of these again. But it was a great atmosphere. It was a fun night.
Yeah, I would agree that Coach Few is not a fan of that atmosphere.
Can't stand
You
it.
know, yeah, but if it becomes a true home court advantage, which is what it looked like, maybe they will have a game a year or an occasional big time program. The only programs that I could see really as myself as a former player and fan wanting to come to Spokane now, whether it's the arena, whether it's McCarthy, the last ones left on my list are Villanova, Duke, and probably Indiana because they're a quote blue blood. Who would yours be?
I like to see Villanova. I think that'd be. I mean, obviously Duke, but we always find a way to play them now. Hopefully, we play them in the PK 85. We'll talk about that on a later episode or this episode. But yeah, I just Indiana, they're better. I mean, that would be a marquee game. But I think Villanova, just because their style and they're similar with a Jesuit program, small school, and they've done what we've tried to do and been really close, is win a couple national championships. So yeah, hopefully they won one or two. Is it one?
I think they've won two in the last 6 years, I
Yeah,
believe.
they won two with Jay Wright. Okay, yeah. Then they won the one in '85 with Georgetown. So anyway, I think Villanova would be the kind of the next blue blood to kind of make it over to this side.
Yeah. Awesome. Last question, Mo, on this episode is you and I've chatted, and we actually talked about it on a previous episode here. The Coach Cal story when he was at Memphis. Did you get a chance to say hello to Coach Cal?
I did not say hello to Coach Kyle. I was courtside, and I didn't want to be involved in any scuffle or anything to get him off his line of thinking. So no, I didn't say anything to him.
That's awesome. Well, Mo, awesome. Great insight as you were there. I watched it on TV. Looking forward to another episode of Gonzaga Nation SI with Adam Morrison and Dan Dickau.